I was staring down the barrel of 40, exhausted, overcaffeinated, and carrying a decade of legal practice on my back. But the most vital survival tactic I ever learned didn't come from a textbook or a judge. It came from a cynical, chain-smoking litigator named Ignatius, back when I was a wide-eyed summer student in my second year of law school. Ignatius operated out of a cramped office that always smelled faintly of stale scotch and floor wax. He had a habit of cleaning his spectacles with a silk handkerchief while delivering brutal truths. A lawyer has three unyielding duties, Ignatius told me one humid afternoon, holding up three nicotine-stained fingers. First to himself, second to the court, and third, dead last, to the client. Always make sure you protect yourself first because the client will absolutely ruin you if given the chance. They will throw you under the tracks without a microscopic fraction of a second's hesitation. I should have stayed anchored to Ignatius and his pragmatic armor, but I was young, ambitious, and fundamentally stupid. I chased the gleam of the downtown high-rises. I am still downtown now, swimming in a sea of billable hours and corporate anxiety. Fortunately, I never forgot his golden rule. It sat dormant in my mind for years, waiting for the inevitable day a client tried to feed me to the wolves. My client was a mid-sized real estate holding conglomerate. They weren't a massive, publicly traded monolith, but they owned a highly lucrative patchwork of commercial properties scattered across the industrial sector. They were profitable, quiet, and usually predictable. That was until a massive, aging warehouse they owned in the East End burned down to its concrete foundation. The smell of charred insulation and melted copper practically radiated through the phone when they called to tell me. They wanted to collect on the multi-million-dollar insurance policy, naturally. To handle the claim, they dispatched Corbin. Corbin was a veteran corporate salaryman pushing 60 who wore off-the-rack suits that were always a decade out of style. He had survived the corporate ladder by being aggressively frugal and taking credit for other people's competence. Above all, Corbin despised paying legal fees. He treated every invoice like a personal insult, scrutinizing line items as if I were charging him for the air he breathed in my lobby. When the warehouse burned, he made it abundantly clear he didn't need my expensive oversight. He had the insurance claim completely under control. "The insurer is going to bleed you dry," I warned him over the phone a few weeks after the fire. It was pure luck I even knew the granular details of the loss. Corbin hadn't asked for my counsel. He'd merely let the fire slip during a routine call about a minor lease dispute. Since then, I had hovered like a vulture, demanding updates. I practically had to threaten him to get a copy of the initial proof of loss form just to ensure he hadn't completely botched the paperwork. To my mild surprise, the form was adequate. That was one bullet dodged. "You don't know the adjuster like I do, Vance," Corbin replied, his voice dripping with unearned confidence. I could hear the squeak of his cheap leather office chair as he leaned back. "We have a great working relationship. You lawyers just want to litigate everything so you can buy another boat. I am paid to know when massive financial institutions are preparing to screw my clients," I said, rubbing the bridge of my nose. "And this insurer is actively digging your grave. They've been stringing you along for months with endless requests for irrelevant blueprints, supplementary questionnaires, and redundant site inspections. They are running out the clock. They are not going to hand you a $2 million check unless you force them to. You need to sue." "I've got it handled," Corbin muttered, clearly eager to terminate the call. "The adjuster said we're in the final review stage. The limitation period expires in precisely 14 days, I said, my voice hardening. "Once that 2-week window closes, your legal right to sue evaporates into thin air. The exact second that clock strikes midnight, your friendly adjuster will stop returning your calls. You will receive a sterile, automated email expressing their deepest regrets that you are out of time, and they will close the file. Let me draft the claim right now. We file it, we serve it, and you will have a settlement check before the snow falls." "Sure, fine, noted. I'll keep an eye on the calendar." "Don't worry about it," Corbin said, rushing through the syllables before hanging up on me. I didn't trust him. I drafted an email outlining everything we had just discussed in glaring, undeniable detail. I included bolded headings, severe warnings about the limitation period, and a direct recommendation to commence litigation immediately. Corbin ignored it. A week later, I forwarded the same email. Ignored. 3 days before the ultimate deadline, I sent a final, blunt message. "I am stepping into a massive commercial trial starting tomorrow," my final email read. "I will be in court all day, every day, and utterly unreachable. You must file a claim against the insurer before Friday. If you refuse to authorize me to do it, pick another firm from the company's approved vendor list and instruct them to sue. If you do nothing, the company loses everything. Silence. I packed my banker's boxes, wheeled them down to the courthouse, and plunged into the exhausting, fluorescent-lit purgatory of civil trial work. For 3 weeks I argued, cross-examined, and drowned in transcripts. I didn't spare a single thought for Corbin or his burnt warehouse. Another month drifted by after the trial concluded. Still, no word from Corbin. I sat in my office one rainy Tuesday, watching the water streak against the glass, and figured the impossible had happened. The insurer had actually paid out. Maybe the old penny pincher really did have a magical rapport with the adjuster. Then my desk phone buzzed. The caller ID displayed Corbin's direct line. "Vance, good morning," Corbin said. His tone was strangely elevated, artificially casual. "Remember that fire insurance file we discussed a while back?" We had discussed it constantly. I immediately sensed the subtle, frantic edge in his voice. I decided to cut straight through the pleasantries. "So they paid out. Excellent news." "I admit you called it right." A heavy, suffocating silence stretched across the line. "What are you talking about?" Corbin finally asked, his voice tightening. "I'm calling because I need you to send me a copy of the claim." "What claim?" I asked, keeping my tone perfectly flat. "The lawsuit against the insurer, you know, the one we talked about." "Corbin," I said slowly, letting the reality of the situation hang in the air. "Does this mean the insurer denied the payout?" The line clicked dead. He actually hung up on me. I stared at the receiver for 3 seconds before my computer screen chimed with an incoming email. It was from Corbin. The subject line was marked urgent. I opened it and read a masterclass in desperate corporate fiction. Corbin had written a lengthy, fabricated summary claiming that we had spoken months ago, that he had explicitly instructed me to sue the insurer, and that he was now deeply concerned because I had never provided him with a file-stamped copy of the pleadings. He was actively laying the groundwork to blame me for a multi-million-dollar loss. He was throwing me directly under the bus to save his own pension. Ignatius's gravelly voice echoed in my skull. "Always make sure you protect yourself first." I didn't just reply to Corbin. I orchestrated a digital execution. I hit reply all. I added Sterling, the company's razor-sharp in-house legal counsel. I added Corbin's direct manager. I added the vice president of operations. My response was a surgical strike. "Corbin, I take it from this sudden email that the insurer did not, in fact, pay you voluntarily exactly as I warned you they wouldn't. I assume that now, with the limitation period hopelessly expired, they have formally denied coverage, leaving the company with a totally uninsured multi-million-dollar crater. As for your assertion that you instructed me to sue, please see the attached chain of 7 separate emails, including my final warning sent 2 days before the deadline, where I repeatedly begged you for instructions to litigate, which you ignored. I await your clarification." I hit send. Then I went to the kitchen, poured myself a dark roast coffee, and waited for the explosion. It took less than 2 hours. My direct line rang, and this time it was Sterling. The in-house counsel rarely called external lawyers unless something was catastrophically wrong or highly lucrative. "Corbin completely messed this up," Sterling said the moment I answered, bypassing any greeting. "We know that. The man is a walking liability, so what are our options?" "I assume his attempt to blame me didn't hold up in the boardroom," I asked, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "Not for a second," Sterling scoffed. "We pulled him into the main conference room 20 minutes ago. His narrative fell apart the moment I printed out your email chain. Plus, I checked the server logs. He was still exchanging friendly emails with the adjuster 3 weeks after the deadline passed. If he genuinely believed he had instructed you to sue, he wouldn't be sending the adjuster out-of-office replies. We know he's lying through his teeth." Sterling let out a long, exhausted exhale that crackled over the speaker. "So that's the end of it then. We just torched a couple of $1 million because this idiot wanted to save 10 grand in legal fees." "Take a breath, Sterling." "It's fine," I said softly. "How exactly is a total loss fine, Vance?" "Because," I explained, leaning forward, "when I realized Corbin was dangerously incompetent and actively ignoring reality, I drafted a statement of claim. I used the bare-bones information from that proof of loss form I bullied him into sending me months ago. It's incredibly brief, totally lacking in particularized damages and, frankly, a bit embarrassing to look at. But it names the correct parties, identifies the policy, and alleges a breach of contract." "Wait," Sterling interrupted, his voice dropping an octave. You sued without instructions. In the legal profession, commencing litigation without explicit client authorization is akin to juggling live grenades. If you sue without instructions, you step outside the protective shield of agency. You become personally, financially liable for every single dollar of court costs the opposing side incurs. If the client refuses to ratify your rogue lawsuit, you can be sued, disciplined by the Law Society, and financially ruined. It is the ultimate gamble. Yes, I confirmed. I sued without instructions. I filed it electronically at 11:45 p.m. the night before the limitation period expired. I paid the court filing fee on my own firm credit card. As I spoke, I attached the file-stamped court document to a new email and fired it over to him. It's a rough draft, I added, hearing the click of his mouse as he opened the PDF. But it preserves the cause of action. We beat the clock. We can always amend the pleadings later to add the specific damage calculations. A profound, stunned silence filled the phone line, followed by a sharp intake of breath. Thank God, Sterling whispered, the tension bleeding out of him in a rush. Vance, you absolute madman, can I leave this entirely in your hands? Consider it done, I said. The insurer was now a sitting duck. They had wrongfully denied a legitimate claim, and I had them locked into a lawsuit they couldn't escape on a technicality. Collecting the millions would be a routine procedural grind. 3 days later, I received a call from a completely unfamiliar voice. It was a younger executive from the client's office, a guy named Julian. He sounded nervous, overly polite, and eager to establish a good rapport. They had a minor zoning issue and needed my perspective. I normally run these preliminary things past Corbin, I mentioned casually. Is he out of the office? Ah, right, Julian said, lowering his voice as if someone might overhear him through the walls. Corbin is no longer with the organization. They called him into the glass boardroom on Thursday afternoon, handed him a single sheet of paper. They didn't even let him log off his computer. They gave him a cardboard banker's box for his desk photos, and security walked him right past the bullpen, straight down the elevator, and out into the parking garage. Bye-bye, Corbins. At 60 years old, with a termination for gross negligence on his record, he wasn't going to secure another comfortable corporate gig. He would spend his remaining years agonizing over the pennies he had tried so desperately to hoard. It was a brutally swift, life-altering devastation for him. For me, it was just another Tuesday. I never set out to destroy Corbin. I didn't actively seek revenge, and under different circumstances, I might have felt a fleeting pang of sympathy for an old man marching out to his car with his career in a cardboard box. But the moment he tried to use my license and my livelihood as a shield for his own incompetence, any trace of pity vanished. He tried to throw me under the bus, only to realize I was the one driving it. Julian, the new guy, turned out to be fantastic. He respected the work, he paid the invoices on time, and he never once tried to nickel and dime me. It was a profitable, seamless relationship. But every now and then, when I find myself sitting at a dimly lit bar with a junior associate, swirling a glass of scotch that smells faintly of Ignatius's old office, I tell them this story. I tell them that the law is a dangerous, unpredictable machine, and the people paying your bills will gladly feed you into the gears to save themselves. Protect the client, yes, but always, without exception, protect yourself first.